Open your phone right now and look at your feed. Whatever you see, whatever news, whatever outrage, whatever version of the world is being shown to you at this exact moment, someone else, somewhere else, is looking at their phone and seeing something completely different. Not a different opinion about the same facts, a different set of facts entirely. In 2026, the United States launched military operations in Venezuela and captured its sitting president. Depending on which feed you follow, this was either a necessary act of justice against a corrupt authoritarian or an illegal act of imperial aggression that violated international law. Both versions have millions of people who are completely, unshakably certain they are right. In Europe, a new nuclear arms race has quietly begun after the last treaty limiting American and Russian long-range nuclear arsenals expired in February. Depending on who you follow, this is either a dangerous escalation driven by Western aggression or a necessary response to Russian imperialism. Same events, completely different realities. Across the world, populist movements are rising, in Britain, in France, and Germany, each claiming to represent the true voice of the people against a corrupt establishment, each calling the other side's version of reality fake, manipulated, dangerous. And you are sitting in the middle of all of it, scrolling, reading, watching, trying to figure out what is actually true. This is not a political problem. This is a philosophical crisis, one that the greatest minds in history saw coming, long before any of us had a smartphone in our pocket. Today we are going to explore what they knew and what it means for how you live right now. 2,400 years ago, Plato wrote one of the most haunting thought experiments in human history, and it describes your life in 2026 more accurately than anything written last week. Imagine prisoners chained in a cave from birth. They cannot turn their heads. They cannot move. All they can see is the wall in front of them. And on that wall, shadows. Shadows of birds, of people, of events happening somewhere behind them that they can never directly see. These prisoners have never seen the actual world. They have only ever seen the shadows, and so the shadows become their reality. They name them, debate them, build entire systems of belief around them. They become experts in shadows. They fight passionately about which shadow is real and which is distortion. And then one prisoner is freed. He turns around, sees the fire casting the shadows, and it blinds him. He is dragged out into actual sunlight, and it blinds him further. Everything he was certain of was a shadow. Plato wrote this as a metaphor for the human condition, for the way we mistake our perception of reality for reality itself. He could not have imagined social media, but he described it with perfect precision. Because what is your feed if not a cave wall, showing you a curated selection of shadows, chosen not to show you the world as it actually is, but to keep you watching, keep you reacting, keep you emotionally activated and scrolling. But here is what makes our situation more dangerous than anything Plato imagined. The shadows on your cave wall are different from the shadows on everyone else's cave wall. Each person has their own custom cave, built by an algorithm, optimized for engagement, updated by the second. For most of human history, people who lived in the same community shared a common reality. They read the same newspapers, watched the same news broadcasts, argued about the same set of facts even when they disagreed about what those facts meant. Their realities overlapped enough to create a shared foundation for conversation, for democracy, for the basic social contract of living together. Social media destroyed that shared foundation, not accidentally. As a deliberate design choice made in service of a single goal, keeping you on the platform as long as possible, because time on platform generates advertising revenue. And the content that keeps you on the platform longest is not the content that is most true. It is the content that is most emotionally activating, most outrage-inducing, most perfectly calibrated to confirm what you already believe and inflame your fears about the people who believe differently. The algorithm learned very quickly that showing you content that challenges your worldview makes you uncomfortable and reduces engagement. Showing you content that validates your existing beliefs, amplifies your grievances, and tells you that you are right and they are wrong, keeps you scrolling for hours. And so it does that, for billions of people simultaneously, creating billions of slightly different versions of reality, each one feeling completely true to the person inside it, each one becoming more extreme over time as the algorithm pushes toward greater and greater emotional activation. This is why two people in the same country, sometimes the same family, can look at the same political event and see something completely unrecognizable to the other. They are not lying, they are not stupid. They have simply been living in different caves, fed different shadows, for long enough that their sense of what is real has genuinely diverged. We did not lose a shared reality, we had it taken from us, one engagement optimization at a time. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote something in the 19th century that was considered dangerously radical at the time and reads like a prophecy of 2026. There are no facts, only interpretations. He did not mean that reality does not exist. He meant something more subtle and more disturbing, that human beings do not have direct, unmediated access to reality. We always encounter the world through the lens of our perspective. Our history, our culture, our fears, our desires, all of these shape what we see before we even consciously begin to evaluate it. He called this perspectivism. Every view of the world is a view from somewhere. There is no view from nowhere. No perspective that sees things as they purely are, stripped of all interpretation. This was a profound insight, but it carried a dangerous implication Nietzsche himself recognized and worried about deeply. If every perspective is just a perspective, if there is no objective truth that everyone can access, then what stops each person from simply declaring their own version of events to be truth and dismissing everyone else's as fake news, propaganda, or manipulation? Nothing. As it turns out, nothing stops that at all. Nietzsche called the collapse of shared truth nihilism, the dissolution of the common values and common reality that hold a civilization together. He considered it the greatest crisis modern humanity would face. Not because truth does not exist, but because people would stop believing it was accessible to anyone outside their own tribe. And in that vacuum, he predicted, every faction, every movement, every ideology would rush to fill the space with its own absolute version of reality. And those versions would not coexist peacefully, they would collide. Look at the world right now and tell me he was wrong. Hannah Arendt was a Jewish philosopher who fled Nazi Germany in 1933 and spent the rest of her life trying to understand how a sophisticated, educated civilization had descended into genocidal horror in less than a decade. Her conclusion was not that the Nazis were uniquely evil monsters from another species of humanity. It was something far more disturbing and far more relevant to 2026. She observed that totalitarian movements, whether fascist or communist, never began with violence. They began with the destruction of truth. The deliberate flooding of public discourse with so many contradictory claims, so many competing narratives, so many alternative facts that ordinary people became unable to distinguish what was real from what was fabricated. Not because they were unintelligent, but because the sheer volume and relentlessness of the distortion overwhelmed their capacity to evaluate it. People stopped trusting any source of information. They retreated into their own private realities, their own tribes, their own closed circles of people who shared their version of the world. And in that fragmentation, the shared public space where democratic life happens simply dissolved. Arendt wrote that the ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced ideologue. It is the person for whom the distinction between fact and fiction, between true and false, no longer meaningfully exists. When truth collapses, it is not replaced by lies. It is replaced by the feeling that nothing is true, and therefore anything is possible. Arendt was describing 1930s Europe, but the mechanism she identified, the deliberate flooding of public discourse with contradiction until people give up on truth entirely, did not require a totalitarian government to implement in the 21st century. It only required an algorithm optimized for engagement and a population that had handed it their attention. The warning she spent her life trying to deliver is not ancient history. It is a description of right now. Today, the world your phone is showing you. Jean Baudrillard was a French philosopher who in the 1980s wrote something that seemed almost incomprehensibly abstract at the time and reads like a technical manual for Instagram, TikTok, and 24-hour rolling news in 2026. He argued that modern society had entered a phase where the image of a thing had completely replaced the thing itself. He called this the simulacrum, a copy without an original. Think about how political reality reaches you now. You do not experience political events. You experience representations of political events, selected, framed, edited, and emotionally intensified to maximize your reaction. The actual event, the messy, complex, ambiguous reality of what happened, is almost inaccessible. What reaches you is a performance of the event, optimized for your particular emotional profile. When the U.S. military operation in Venezuela happened earlier this year, what did you actually know about it? What you knew was what your particular feed chose to show you, the images selected to support a particular interpretation, the voices given airtime, the emotional frame applied before you ever had a chance to encounter the raw facts. Baudrillard's insight was that at a certain point, the representation becomes more real than the reality it was meant to represent. The map becomes the territory, the image becomes the thing, and the actual, unmediated, genuinely complex reality becomes almost impossible to reach. This is what has happened to political truth. It has not simply been distorted, it has been replaced by a layer of performed, filtered, algorithmically curated reality that is now more vivid, more emotionally present, and more constantly available than actual reality. And the longer you spend inside that performed reality, the harder it becomes to find your way back to anything genuinely real. So, what do you actually do with this? Because this is where most analyses of our current situation stop. They name the crisis, they identify the technology, they blame the platforms, and then they leave you sitting with the uncomfortable awareness that the world is more broken than you realized, and no clear idea of what to do about it. Quiet thinker exists for a different kind of question, not just what is wrong with the world, but what can one human being do, right now, in their own actual life, to stay honest in a world that has lost its grip on shared truth. Albert Camus lived through the Nazi occupation of France. He watched the collapse of political certainty, the weaponization of language, the corruption of truth by ideology. He watched movements that claimed absolute truth use that claim to justify absolute atrocity, and his response was not cynicism. It was not the conclusion that since all truth is relative, you might as well pick the tribe that suits you and defend its version of reality against all comers. His response was radical honesty as a daily personal practice. Camus believed that in a world where collective truth has collapsed, the most important thing a human being can do is to be scrupulously, almost uncomfortably honest in their own life, in their own thinking, in their own engagement with ideas and events. To resist the seduction of comfortable certainty, including the certainty that confirms your own existing worldview, and to stay with the discomfort of genuine complexity. This is harder than it sounds, because the perfectly curated feed that tells you that you are right and they are wrong is genuinely pleasurable. It is warm, validating, and endlessly confirming. Choosing to step outside it, to actively seek out perspectives that challenge you, to hold your own certainties more lightly, to sit with the discomfort of not having a clean answer, requires a kind of daily courage that most people never practice. But it is the only thing that keeps you genuinely connected to reality. The only practice that distinguishes a thinking human being from a very sophisticated algorithm that has learned to predict and reinforce your existing beliefs. You do not have to solve the geopolitical crisis. You do not have to fix the algorithm. You do not have to single-handedly restore shared reality to a fragmented world. You have to do something much simpler and much harder. You have to be honest in your own thinking, about your own certainties, every single day. This is what quiet thinker exists to practice. One honest exploration every Thursday, for the part of you that still wants to think for itself. If that kind of thinking matters to you, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. The truth has not disappeared. It has become harder to find, harder to hold. harder to share across the distance that now separates people living in different algorithmic realities, but it has not disappeared. Plato's prisoner who escaped the cave did not find that there was nothing outside it. He found the sun, overwhelming and more real than anything the cave had ever shown him. The question is not whether truth exists. The question is whether you are willing to do the uncomfortable work of leaving your cave to find it. Whether you are willing to have your certainties challenged. Whether you can sit with the genuine complexity of a world that does not resolve neatly into the version your algorithm has built for you. Because the alternative, staying in the cave, becoming ever more certain that your shadows are real and everyone else's are fabrications, does not end well. History has shown us with devastating clarity exactly where that ends. The truth is still there, outside the cave, waiting for anyone willing to turn around. I want to leave you with one question to sit with. What is one belief you hold with absolute certainty that you have never genuinely tried to challenge? Leave it in the comments. I read every one. Quiet Thinker exists for exactly this kind of question. One honest exploration every week for the part of you that refuses to stop thinking for itself. Until next time, stay with the questions.